How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Blake Check. If you saw one of my recent videos, you'll know that my wife and I, there's wife in the background, that my wife and I recently reserved our very own Volkswagen ID.4. That's Volkswagen's electric SUV, and it's their competitor to Tesla's Model Y. So we put it on our reservation, but we haven't put our full deposit down. So we thought within the next 3 to 6 months while that car is being built and before we get our delivery notice, we would check out some other EVs. So we thought we would start with none other than the Tesla Model Y. That's my personal favorite. So we thought we'd check it out. Some of you guys will be surprised to find out that I have never driven a Model Y. I have a Model 3 Performance, and I know that that car drives and it is very similar to the Model Y. So I haven't really gone out of my way to get inside a Model Y to drive it and compare it. We're going to go over some of the features of the Model Y. There are other Model Y videos on YouTube. I know we might offer some new perspectives on the Model Y, so stay tuned to the end. There might be some stuff in here that you haven't heard about yet. All right, so we're going to start with the interior of the car. Those of you, again, who are familiar with the, thanks, those of you who are familiar with the Tesla Model 3 will be familiar with this interior too. So this is the pre-refreshed Model Y. You'll notice that it has the piano black trim. The more updated Model Y will have a newer interior that with a matte finish that doesn't collect as many scratches and fingerprints. I personally like that. One thing that I did want to point out is that the Model Y rides higher than the Model 3 for a couple of reasons. One being that the car just sits higher, it has just a higher suspension setup, but also it has this like carpeted box that each of the seats sit on to give you that SUV-like driving experience. So this is an extra like 4 or 5 inches that you'll sit on that will make you feel like you're riding higher than in the Model 3. So that's something to keep in mind for folks who have trouble getting in and out of lower sedans. The Model Y definitely rides like an SUV, and it gives you that easier access to get in and out of the car. So let's keep looking around the car here. Let's go to the back. Now again, very similar to the Model 3, one thing I do want to point out is that there's a little more space here in the back, so it's slightly wider. I think you do get an extra inch or two in that middle seat, so you're not going to be as squished in the back of the Model Y as you would be in the back of my Model 3. Babe, I know you sat in the back of the Model 3, and it's kind of tight back there, but especially if you're going to have like car seats or something in your car, you're going to want something with a few more inches, and the Model Y gives you that over the Model 3, I think. Yeah, definitely a ton of headroom in here too. Another difference between this and the Model 3 is that you don't have like the separation bar in the middle here, so you kind of get a even more open and airy feel from that panoramic glass roof. That's really nice. But yeah, lots of leg space. The Model 3 has plenty of leg space, I think, but I would guess that the Model Y gives you an extra inch or two.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the wheels here. So this is the Aero kit, just like in my Model 3. This is a plastic cap that can be removed. I'm not going to take it off because this isn't my car, but you'll save you know, like an extra 10 or 15 miles by having these caps on your wheels. So that's what I love about my car. It's kind of like you have two drive modes. You have like your range mode with the caps on, and I think that the wheels underneath the caps look pretty good too, especially on my car. So I kind of like to be able to switch that up sometimes. So this is, I think, where the Model Y really shines over the Model 3, and even over some of the other EV competitors that the Model Y is compared to often, like the ID.4 that we just reserved. The cargo capacity in the Model Y is top class. So it's like, I don't know the exact numbers, so just like I did before, I'm going to drop those figures right here at the bottom of the screen. But just like in the ID.4 that I just showed you guys, there's a underfloor storage in the cargo area. So I could tell you for sure that this is a lot deeper than in the ID.4, so that's a major benefit. Actually, this looks like it's deeper than in my Model 3 too, so that's a ton of space there. Let's see here, there's of course the side wells here too that you get some extra space in. And then just like in the ID.4 and in my Model 3, you can fold down those rear seats too for some extra storage here in the back. One thing I will point out is that the Model Y actually didn't come with like a cargo area cover. So that ID.4 that I looked at before, again, if you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link right here in the top right corner for you to click on. Definitely check that out. It's fun to compare this car to the ID.4. But that one did come with a rear cargo area cover. This doesn't have that. I know there are some aftermarket options for something like that, but it's nice that the ID.4 comes with that standard. That's pretty cool. One more thing I do want to point out is that the Model Y in every model year comes with an automatic trunk. So to open and close the trunk, you would press this button here. So I'll just demonstrate that real quick. Pretty nice if your hands are full of stuff, to just be able to press a button and have it open all the way. The height of the cargo area is adjustable, so if you want to push this up a little bit, you can just set it in place, hold the button down here. There'll be like a little beep or something, just like that. And now this is the new height of the cargo area. So that's nice if you live somewhere where the garage is kind of low. But yeah, like I said, I don't want to spend too much time looking at the features of the Model Y, because it's been on the market for a few years now. So by this time, there's tons of videos on YouTube that kind of go over it in more depth. So what we're going to do next is hop inside and take a true test drive and decide finally whether or not we're going to stick with our ID.4 reservation or if we're going to change that to a Model Y. All right. Okay, so before I get started, I want to give a special thank you to my buddy Vishal, who has lent his Model Y to us. Vishal has this dual motor Model Y, so I'm sure you guys are familiar, but if you're not, the dual motor setup means just what it sounds like. It has a motor driving the rear wheels and a motor driving the front wheels, which is great for grip, because these cars are fast and you need it. But also it gives you like that all-wheel drive setup to make you more capable in like dirt and snow and sand and stuff like that. So we're gonna get moving. All right, so the first thing I want to get into before we even start talking about the features and stuff of this car from a driving perspective is the price difference between the ID.4 that we ended up reserving and this Model Y that we're sitting in right here. So I mentioned to you guys not too long ago that I would have preferred a Model Y. I'm a Model 3 owner. I love Tesla's products. The way that I describe them is that they're computers on wheels. So it's just like a giant tablet. It's a giant iPad, basically. So that's great. But just the demand for Teslas has just started to make them a little bit price prohibitive, I think, for people who are just looking for an economy SUV. So somebody coming from like your standard, Toyota RAV4, that's what I keep going back to as like the staple for just like an economy SUV. But you had a 2017 Hyundai Santa Fe, so we can compare it to that too. Those are kind of like in like a range of like $20,000 to like $30,000, depending on like if you buy one used or brand new. The Model Y starts today at $58,990. So for a lot of people, that's just too expensive. For us, that's too expensive, I think. Yep. So that's why, we haven't spent so much time really considering the Model Y. I searched the used car market too, and just like even those, the cheapest ones I've seen are like $50,000 for a used Model Y. And that's for the standard range, which isn't even offered on Tesla's website anymore. So all that to say, the ID.4 that we reserved after the tax credit is going to cost us $32,500. So that's like almost half the price, and is really what has just like made it that much easier of a decision, I think. Yeah. So we can start to talk about the Model Y in particular. One thing that people fault the Model Y for is the ride quality. So I thought we would start off in this parking garage that has a lot of bumps and stuff, just like that one. What do you think?
It still feels really smooth to me.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah. I would say after having driven that ID.4 that you feel a lot more of the road in this car. I guess that's a double-edged sword, or like there's positives and negatives to that. Some people who like a sportier, more connected driving experience, they're gonna like the Model Y just because of like the performance aspect of like having more road feel. But if you prefer just like a more cushy, like softer ride, that's kind of where the ID.4 starts to make more sense, because earlier I said that Teslas are computers on wheels. I would say that the ID.4 is more like a car that just happens to have like a computer. Jeez, lady. I would say that the ID.4 is more like just like a traditional car that just happens to have a computer and a battery in it. So that's what I would say to somebody who's kind of just looking for a one-sentence differentiation between the ID.4 and the Model Y. Just like in my Model 3, the Model Y has different drive modes. You can go to the main menu here in the bottom left-hand corner. You can go to driving. You can change from chill to sport acceleration. The steering can be changed from comfort comfort to standard to sport, and then you can turn off or on the regen braking, or you can make it more or less aggressive, so that's nice.
Other thing too, when looking at the ID.4 and Model Y, the ID.4 has really a nice interior, but it's not so much of a wow factor like you get here. It's very sleek and clean, and the tablet is much bigger.
Yeah, that's a subjective thing for people, I think. I've heard people say that they think the ID.4 is more luxurious. That I definitely don't agree with. But, you know, some people like more buttons. They like more options to touch. They like a gauge cluster in front of the steering wheel. They like all that stuff. And to them, that's what luxury is. It's like just having more stuff. For me, I'm the opposite. I like having less stuff. I like a cleaner, more simplistic driving experience. It just makes me feel more calm and more at home when I'm in a car and there's not clutter everywhere. So that's why I think the Model Y is more luxurious. But, you know, that's subjective. People are different.
It might just be maybe more intuitive to have more of the stuff that ID.4 has. Yeah. Whereas this one takes some learning to get used to.
I would agree with that. I think for somebody who's coming from a traditional SUV, like a gas-powered SUV, they're going to feel more comfortable making the transition over to something like the ID.4, just because you do have more buttons. It's built more like a traditional internal combustion engine car, especially with the weight distribution. You get a more sporty handling experience in the Model Y, but because the batteries and the motors are all kind of up in this front compartment in the ID.4, the ID.4 drives surprisingly a lot like just a traditional internal combustion engine car. So this isn't an ad for the ID.4. I want to reiterate that I would have preferred a Model Y, but for folks who are more comfortable driving an internal combustion engine car, the ID.4 is probably a better option for you. So.
And almost half the price.
And again, almost half the price. I think the last thing to do before we, you know, park the car, hop back in our Model 3 is just floor it real quick. Ready?
Okay.
All right. Not bad. Did you guys know I have a Model 3 Performance Stealth Edition? So the acceleration isn't on that level, of course, but just for one, considering that this is an SUV, and for two, considering that this is the just the long-range dual motor variant, that's plenty fast. So that's fast enough for really anybody who's coming from a traditional SUV, especially. So another thing I want to point out, I pointed it out in the ID.4 that we test drove, was that the backup camera was great. The Model Y's backup camera is even better, I would say, because you get these two side perspectives, and so that's nice. You get the same like radar beeping and stuff as you're backing up in here too. That's something we really didn't talk about during this test drive, was just all the safety features, so we can go in here too. There is Sentry Mode, which is something that I don't think the ID.4 has. So that's just a really nice safety feature. Gives you a little peace of mind when you park your car somewhere that you're not familiar with. And with Tesla's new introduction to their app, the Live View, from just a remote location, you can look on your phone and see all 4 cameras in the Model Y, which the ID.4 just doesn't have. So that's not to say that the ID.4 won't introduce something like that in the future, but the Model Y has that today. With that $58,999, you get that all today. Another thing that I want to point out is that, you know, the driver assistance features that come with the Model Y, I'm not super familiar with what Volkswagen is offering in terms of, like, you know, lane keep assist and, you know, adaptive cruise control and stuff like that. But I can guarantee that it's not on the same, you know, it's not on the same level as Tesla's autopilot and full self-driving software. Tesla just is leagues ahead of anybody else that's trying to develop, you know, like an AI-based full self-driving software for public use. So that's something to consider. But again, we have the Model 3 that has all those things, so that's not something that I feel like I'm missing out on. But alright, that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching this far into the video. I know that there are a ton of Model Y reviews on YouTube already, but I wanted to share our perspective with you guys since we're considering buying another EV for our garage. But that's all I have for you guys today. This has been Blake Check, and that's a wrap.